Florida has always been better at the pitch than the product. Sun, beaches, opportunity, and a century of billion-dollar ideas that collapsed before the first nail was driven.
Rescue a few stories up at the construction site for the soon-to-come Orlando Eye. Chopper 2 flew above the wheel along I Drive, where a construction worker briefly became stuck on one of the platforms.
We are following breaking news out of Florida. A new report is now out revealing what may have caused the deadly condo building collapse in Surfside, Florida.
These aren't projects that failed after they were built. These were planned, funded, approved, sometimes partially constructed, then abandoned, canceled, or swallowed by the same swamp they were trying to conquer. The list includes a World's Fair that became a toxic waste dump, a city that bulldozed its own island out of spite, a rocket still sitting in a swamp since 1967, a canal 4 U.S. presidents couldn't finish, and a mall that's been opening soon for over a decade. 8 projects, 8 collapses, counting down from the merely embarrassing to the genuinely unhinged. Number 8, Aladdin City, Redland, Miami-Dade County, 1925 to 1934. A mail-order home company from Michigan decided to build an Arabian Nights city in a South Florida farm field. Neighborhood, a city. Planned population, 10,000. Streets name Alibaba Circle, Sinbad Street, Baghdad Avenue, and Mecca Avenue. A Moorish fantasy, 20 miles southwest of Miami. The developers were Otto and William Sovereign, founders of the Aladdin Company of Bay City, Michigan, America's leading manufacturer of mail-order kit homes. On opening day, January 14, 1926, they chartered 6 aircraft, flew in all the building materials, and built a complete house from dawn to dusk as a publicity stunt. 874 home sites sold that day. 3 death blows followed fast. The October 1925 railroad embargo had already choked off building supplies across Florida. On January 10, 1926, the schooner Prince Valdemar sank in Miami Harbor and blocked the port for nearly 50 days. The September 1926 hurricane finished it. Real estate prices collapsed overnight. By March 1934, the Sovereign brothers had returned lots to raw acreage and were liquidating at deep discounts. Today, a single curved fragment of Alibaba Circle survives in the landscape. The eastern section is farmland. No plaque, no marker, no acknowledgement. 874 lots sold on a Tuesday. The city was dead by September of the same year. The Arabian Nights dream is now a curve in a farm road. The curve used to be Alibaba Circle. Number 7, the Gulf Atlantic Ship Canal Ocala, 1933 to 1936. Before Florida's most famous failed canal, there was a bigger one almost nobody remembers. In 1933, FDR and the newly created Canal Authority of the state of Florida set out to dig a 30-foot deep ship canal straight across the state, deep enough for full ocean-going vessels crossing from the Atlantic to the Gulf. FDR allocated $5 million toward an estimated cost of $143 million. That gap should have been the first warning. 6,000 workers arrived in Ocala in September 1935. 10 liquor licenses issued in a single week. 13 million cubic yards of material excavated. Bridge piers built near Ocala. Then scientists pointed out that a 30-foot canal through the Florida Aquifer's recharge zone would allow saltwater to permanently intrude into the drinking water supply for millions of people. Evaporation losses alone, 40 million gallons of fresh water per day. A single barge fuel leak could contaminate millions of gallons within days. Senator William Proxmire named it in his Golden Fleece Awards for government waste. Funding was pulled. Workers left. The site became, in one contemporary account's words, a giant rock pile. That rock pile became the starting point for the next attempt, the Cross Florida Barge Canal, which launched in 1964 and also failed. Same route, same arguments. $70 million more expensive, the first. Attempt was stopped because it would have poisoned Florida's drinking water. Florida's response was to wait 3 decades and try a slightly smaller version of the same idea. Both are nature trails now. Number 6, the Cross Florida Barge Canal, Jacksonville to Yankeetown, 1567 to 1990. This project was first proposed in 1567 by Spanish explorer Pedro Menendez de Avilés, who was tired of the dangerous journey around Florida's Cape. It was still being seriously attempted in 1969. 400 years, 4 presidents, Roosevelt, Truman, Kennedy, and Johnson. None of them finished it. The plan? A 171-mile canal connecting the Atlantic to the Gulf. with 3 dams, 5 locks, a channel 150 feet wide and 12 feet deep. By the Cold War era, advocates had added a national security pitch, protected inland routes for oil tankers, shielded from Soviet threats in the Caribbean. President Johnson personally triggered the explosives at the groundbreaking in Palatka in February 1964. Activist Marjorie Harris Carr founded the Florida Defenders of the Environment, appealed to Nixon, and filed legal challenges against the Army Corps of Engineers. A federal court granted an injunction on January 15, 1971. 4 days later, Nixon signed an executive order halting all work. The canal was 28% complete, $75 million spent. Congress didn't officially deauthorize it until 1990, 55 years after construction began. Completed locks sit abandoned in the Ocala National Forest. Bridge stanchions jut out of the water going nowhere. The corridor is now the Marjorie Harris Carr Cross Florida Greenway, a hiking trail named after the woman who killed the project. First proposed in 1567, 4 attempts, $75 million. Not one barge ever crossed the land it was supposed to. Destroy is now a nature park named after its destroyer. Number 5, Interama, Miami's permanent World's Fair, North Miami, 1951 to 1974. Someone decided Miami needed a permanent World's Fair, not one that runs for 6 months and closes, but one open every day, forever, on man-made islands in Biscayne Bay. The architects hired included Louis Kahn, Marcel Breuer, Paul Rudolph, and Minoru Yamasaki, the man who would later design the World Trade Center. The Inter-American Center Authority was chartered in 1951 to build it. They spent the next 23 years not building it. The vision, 680 acres of finger-shaped dredge islands, themed pavilions for every country in the Americas connected by aerial cable cars, and a 1,000-foot Tower of Freedom designed by Yamasaki. Pod elevators, revolving restaurant, accessible by underwater tunnel. President Johnson authorized $9.5 million in federally funds. Construction began in September of 1964. Planned opening July 4, 1968. The project went through 4 complete redesigns over 20 years. Latin American countries, many living under U.S.-backed dictatorships at the time, declined to participate in a celebration of Pan-American cooperation, which was a problem for a project built entirely around that concept. The 1968 opening came and went, then 1970. President Ford canceled all federal bicentennial funding in 1974. After 23 years and 4 world-famous architects, exactly 1 building had been constructed. Florida International University's Biscayne Bay campus now sits on the land. Oleta River State Park covers the rest. The completed Trade Center became a classroom. The site where the Tower of Freedom was to rise spent subsequent years as a toxic and hospital waste landfill before cleanup. Designed by the architect of the world, Trade Center, backed by the President of the United States, planned for over 2 decades, it became a landfill. Number 4, the Miami-Dade rocket facility, Homestead/Everglades, 1963 to 1969. There is a rocket in a hole in the Florida Everglades right now. It has been there since 1967. NASA left it. It is the largest solid fuel rocket motor ever built, inside a 180-foot concrete silo, 5 miles from Everglades National Park. Authorities covered it with 33-ton concrete beams in 2013, not out of reverence, but because people kept climbing in. In 1963, Aerojet General Corporation received $3 million from the U.S. Air Force to build a rocket facility southwest of Homestead on 25,000 acres. The goal, build the AJ260 solid fuel motor and win the NASA contract for Apollo Saturn V. The motors were too wide to move by rail, so Aerojet dug a 9-mile canal through the Everglades, installed a drawbridge on U.S. Highway 1, and barred the chambers in by barge from Pennsylvania. 3 test firings, September 1965 through June 1967, visible from Miami. During the 3rd test, the nozzle ejected and sprayed hydrochloric acid across the Everglades, crop fields, and Homestead neighborhoods, stripping paint off cars, killing crops. Aerojet called the test successful. In 1969, NASA chose liquid fuel engines and gave the contract to a competitor. Workers were laid off. The facility was abandoned. In 1986, Aerojet sold the land for $6 million. The state bought it back for $12 million. The rocket is still in its silo. The Aerojet Canal still disrupts Everglades hydrology. The facility buildings decay across the site. Aerojet Road is now a 6-mile hiking trail to the ruins. The largest solid fuel rocket ever built is under concrete in a swamp. The canal dug to deliver it. Still damages the Everglades. The people of Homestead remember the day their car paint melted. Number 3. The Everglades. Jetport Big Cypress, 1968 to 1970. In 1968, the Dade County Port Authority broke ground on the world's largest airport. 6 runways, supersonic capable, on 39 square miles of Everglades marshland. It was designed around one specific airplane, Boeing's 2707 supersonic transport, projected to carry 300 passengers at Mach 2.7. That airplane no longer exists. Congress canceled it in 1971 after spending over $1 billion on its development. The site in Big Cypress was chosen for its remoteness, far enough from populated areas to handle supersonic noise, large enough for full build-out. If completed, it would have covered more land than the island of Manhattan. Construction started in 1968. Environmental opposition arrived almost immediately, with scientists arguing the airport would disrupt the freshwater sheet flow, keeping the Everglades alive. By 1970, after completing one of 6 planned runways, construction was halted through legal challenges and federal review. Then the Boeing 2707 was canceled. The airplane the airport was built for was gone. That one completed runway is now the Dade Collier Training and Transition Airport, used by student pilots practicing touch-and-go landings. Travelers on Alligator Alley pass within miles of it without knowing it exists. The 39 square miles of marshland intended for runways remain marsh. One runway of a 6-runway supersonic airport, built for a supersonic airplane the government then canceled. That runway now teaches students how to land on it. Number 2, Islandia, the city that bulldozed itself. Elliott Key/Biscayne Bay, 1960 to 2012. On December 22, 1960, 13 people voted to incorporate a city. All 13 owned land on the islands. The ballot box was ferried to the meeting by boat. The first mayor was Luther L. Brooks, a former bootlegger described by a contemporary as so crooked he couldn't wear his shoes. The plan: incorporate 33 islands in the upper Florida Keys as a city, use that municipal status to bypass state and federal zoning, and secure a 6-lane causeway from the mainland to Elliott Key, then build luxury hotels, shopping centers, and beachfront homes across 7 miles of pristine island, a new Miami Beach. By 1963, the landowners had convinced the Florida governor to back the causeway. A Miami Herald editorial predicted, "One day for sure there will be a causeway to Islandia." Albert C. Bostwick Jr., heir to the Standard Oil fortune, announced in 1967 he would build a marina complex on Elliott Key. It never broke ground. Representative Dante Fischel introduced National Park. Legislation in 1966. Herbert Hoover Jr., head of the Hoover Vacuum Company, funded the conservation effort. With the park bill gaining momentum in 1968, Islandia officials barged bulldozers to Elliott Key and cut a 125-foot wide strip across the entire 7-mile island, intending to scar it badly enough that the federal government would walk away from the park idea. President Johnson signed the Biscayne National Monument Bill in October 1968. The developers lost. The city of Islandia continued to legally exist for 52 more years. No government, no services, no roads, until Miami-Dade County abolished it on March 16, 2012. Population at the 2010 census, 18 people, most of them park rangers. The bulldozed scar is now an 8-foot nature trail called Spite Highway. That is its official name on park maps. The scar they made trying to destroy the park is a trail inside the park with a name on the map, named after the act that created it. Number 1. American Dream, Miami Northwest Miami-Dade County, 2015 to present. There is a 175-acre empty field near the intersection of Interstate 75 and the Florida Turnpike in northwest Miami-Dade County. It has been an empty field since 2015. It is supposed to be the largest shopping mall in North America. It was supposed to open in 2020. The current deadline is 2045. Developer 555 Group. The Gurmesian family, owners of Mall of America, West Edmonton Mall, and American Dream Meadowlands, announced in 2015 6.2 million square feet, a 16-story indoor ski slope, submarine rides, a water park, an ice rink, an aquarium, a performing arts center, 2,000 hotel rooms, 30,000 visitors per day. Cost, over $4 billion, later revised to over $5 billion. Miami-Dade approved rezoning in May 2018. 555 agreed to open by 2025 or pay a $5 million penalty. As of early 2026, not a single construction permit has been filed. 555 paid $11 million in extension fees to Graham Companies, a local developer that agreed in 2014 to sell 63 acres, without ever closing on the purchase. Graham eventually refused to finalize the sale. 555 sued Graham. Graham countersued. Miami-Dade sued 555 for the $5 million penalty. 555 paid it. The deadline was extended to 2045. 555 then asked Miami-Dade to lift a ban on taxpayer subsidies, a ban the same commission imposed when it approved the project, arguing it needed $60 million in county road funding to proceed. The field is still a field. No permits, no groundbreaking, no ski slope, no submarines. The largest mall ever proposed for America has been coming soon for over a decade. Developer paid $11 million to delay buying land for a building they haven't started. Florida gave them until 2045, 20 more years to not build an indoor ski slope next to the Everglades. It is in every sense a Florida story, a pitch too big to ignore, and a reality that is an empty field with a lawsuit attached. Every one of these projects had the same ingredients: an enormous pitch, real money, real political support, and then nature, economics, politics, or basic physics reminded everyone where they actually were. Florida has always been the world's best laboratory for ambition outruning reality. Some of these failures left nature trails. One left a rocket in a swamp. One left an 8-foot path called Spite Highway, where a 6-lane causeway was supposed to be. And one is technically still in progress. If you know of a failed Florida project I missed, drop it in the comments. Subscribe. There are plenty more where these came from.